Okay, in the last video I showed you how to download data from Gapminder to Excel, and now I want to show you how to clean it up so that you have some data that you can compare. If you look here in the first cell right here, we have the word country. I'm going to change that to 2014 because I know those are the countries, and I'm going to change this to completion rate, just so I can remember which I have in which column. This was cost, and then country can just stay there. We can change that to 2014. At this point, save your data. Okay, so just go in, File, Save As, save it somewhere, and then as you work, you can save. But if you have a problem, you can always go back to the last version where you know things were correct. Right. So right now I know everything. The raw data is here, and this is probably what I will put as I'm writing my paper. This is probably what I would put in the appendices as the raw data, because I think it's important to know that we had data for Albania in completion rate, but we didn't have data for their cost, so we need to delete that country. We'll do that later. First, I'm just going to try to make sure that Afghanistan is in the same row. You'll notice here I've got Australia, which is lined up with Austria. That's not the way I want to compare the numbers. I want to compare this number to that number, so I have to sort this out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a test in Excel using a formula. I want to see if this cell is equal to this cell. Are they both the same name? If they are, I want it to return the value true. If not, I want it to return the value false. Okay, so if I go in here, I'm going to enter a formula. So I'll put equals. That tells me I want a formula. And I'm going to type the word if, because I want to know if something's true, do something. If it's false, do something else. So I double click on it, and it gives me the, okay, and it says, okay, what's your test? Well, I want to know if this cell, so I click on it, is equal to this cell. Then you can see I put in a comma. And if it is, I want it to return a T. If it's not, I want it to return an F. Now when I did the lecture in class, I used 1s and 2s, but this should also work. So right now, if I hit enter, I'm hopeful that it will give me a T. Let's see. It gives me a T. So the other thing I'm going to do, I'll highlight this and move it over to the other side so that it's far away, so it's not getting mixed up with the numbers. So I copy that cell and I drag it all the way down to the bottom, and we have a lot of falses, right? But the minute we fix some, we'll get more trues. So we go all the way up to the top, and we can see our first false is here. I've got Austria and Australia. Now I don't see Australia in this one, so I need to take Australia out. So I'm going to highlight Australia, and I want Austria to come up. So I right click, and I'm going to delete. And it says, when I delete those two pieces, what do I want everything else to do? Well, I want it to come up. So I just shift cells up. Okay, and now it gives me a reference error. But I do have Austria with Austria, right? So I need to copy this again and go down. And actually, you don't need to go down all the way. You could go down that far. Now we have true, because see, now we have a false already. So these countries need to go out. So it's 2 cells, right? So I'm going to delete those cells and shift everything up again. And then again, I get a reference error. But now I have Bahrain with Bahrain and Bangladesh with Bangladesh. So copy, and then just go down. Again, you don't have to go very far. You're just looking for your next false. Okay, Belarus, I don't have any data here, so I just will delete. shift cells up, and then go to the cell above the reference error and go down, paste. Okay, so true, 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 true. Okay, here's a new false. Cape Verde, Canada. That's interesting. I don't have any data for Canada in terms of cost, but I don't. So I will take Canada, and I don't have any data there anyway, so it's okay. Delete, shift cells up, and now I have that, and control copy. And you just continue on until you have all trues. Okay? So I'll let you work on that, and I'll give you some advice in a minute after we finish that. So carry on. Okay, now once you've done all of that, you should have an entire column of just T's, and you need to go and look. Denmark, yeah, Denmark's with Denmark. Jamaica, Jamaica. Latvia. Norway, Norway, all the way at the bottom. There shouldn't be any. Zimbabwe, Zimbabwe. So we're good. Okay, so now I have everything lined up. The other thing you want to do is you need to go back and look at the raw data and make sure Finland was 21.2 in your original data and that Finland was 98.9. Because if you made an error, you may show Finland at 18, which means you shifted your data. Okay, and don't forget again to continue to save your file. Okay. Now, the next thing that we need to do is we need to eliminate countries that don't have data in both fields. Okay, so what I can do is I can go in and I can filter. So I'm going to put in a filter, and that went in the wrong place, so I escape. Unfilter, go back up to the top. I'm going to filter here. Should give me a filter all the way across. Let's see if it does. Yeah. So now I have filters here. I have drop downs as to what I want. So in the comp rate, the first thing I want to do is I want to unselect all. And I want to go down to the bottom and it'll say blanks. Hit OK. So these are all the all the countries that I don't have data for. Quite a few. So if I click on that, I just go down and delete. Okay. So now it doesn't look like I have any data, but if I go back in and I select all again, I have all the countries that I have rates for. Now I need to do the same for cost. Unselect all, blanks. Okay, so I'm going to delete all of these because for Albania I don't have cost, so I can't compare it. And unfortunately, so delete. Probably not going to have a lot of countries left, but we'll see what happens. Hit OK, and this now. This whole column can just be deleted because we no longer need to look at that comparison. Okay, so now I have only 64 out of 195 possible countries that I have data for both. So that's something you need to think about. Is this enough data to make us some comparisons? My guess is probably it's okay. If it was less than 50, I would definitely think to look at something else. But that's how you do it, and then you have some bivariate data. The other thing you can do, just real quickly, I'm going to unfilter, and I'm going to delete this country column because I don't need it listed twice. So there. Now I have, in 2014, in Argentina, the comp rate and the cost. The comp rate and the cost for each country that had data for both. Hope this helps.